a first look at presidential approval ratings data using math recognition. This data here shows the green plus signs are actual data from Gallup and other polling services of the presidential approval rating, which is expressed in percent approval by Americans, all the way back to the 1940s and Harry Truman up to the present day and Joe Biden. The blue line represents the model fit produced by our math recognition engine based on certain inputs that may influence how much the public approves of the president. You can see there's some agreement. It has about a 43% agreement. It's a difficult problem to accurately predict the approval rating of the president or other kinds of issues like this. The inputs that we use in the model are the real value, the inflation-adjusted value of gold. That's the gold-looking line here. That, we would think, probably is negatively correlated with the presidential approval. So people go into gold and buy gold because they're worried about the economy, they're afraid of inflation or economic collapse. So it's generally, if people are pouring into gold, it's generally interpreted as a vote of sort of low confidence or no confidence in not necessarily the president, but since the president is in charge, it's likely to reflect badly on the president. The other inputs are the official unemployment rate here. This is the U3 unemployment rate from the U.S. government. I'll talk a little bit about some of the controversy over how reliable these numbers are a little bit later. And we incorporate a model for the honeymoon period. So it is generally thought that presidents, the first time they become president or they take over, there's a honeymoon period, maybe about 6 months. That's borne out for most presidents. It might not have been true of President Trump, but it generally seems to be part of what's going on. When we combine all of these together, we do get a moderately predictive model. As I indicated, we would, of course, like this number to be substantially larger, and hopefully maybe we can put something out like that in the future. This article is done using our math recognition engine, which we sometimes abbreviate as MathRec. The engine has a large expanding database of known mathematics, so it knows a lot of mathematics that most analysts are not that familiar with, and it uses AI and pattern recognition technology to identify likely candidate mathematical models for data, for example, the presidential approval rankings data. And it can analyze the data in higher dimensions and do various things that are difficult, not impossible, but difficult for humans to do. Some are perhaps impossible. Once it's collected a list of candidates that are likely to be true, it's doing this in an automatic way fairly quickly as compared to what a human will do, which involves a lot of trial and error or going to the library and looking through math handbooks or otherwise trying to find a model. But it has the advantage that we now have put in computerized form an enormous amount of mathematics. So that's what we're exploiting. It then automatically fits the candidate models to the data and provides a ranked list of the models ordered by goodness of fit. Now, there are many different goodness of fit statistics. The one we're using is the coefficient of determination, or R squared, and we actually have some adjustments for this to deal with some technical issues that I'm not going to discuss here. This here, what's shown here, is the best model that was produced by running the math recognition on this particular data set. And it is ranked, so there are other models, but they're not as good. We can also tell to what extent we can distinguish between the models. Sometimes the top 3 or 4 models are statistically indistinguishable. You can't really tell which one is really the best. This is the best by a significant margin of the models it found. The model at present, and we're working on this, does not capture a lot of historical events that appear to significantly boosted or reduced the U.S. presidential approval ratings. These are things like the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 in October, which showed a definite boost to President Kennedy. The Iran hostage crisis in 1979 and 80 initially helped President Carter, but then seems to have damaged him. The September 11 attacks dramatically boosted the popularity or approval rating for President Bush right after the attacks. And of course, the attacks were followed by the invasion of Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, and the public response to this appears to be fairly complicated. Usually these crises give a boost at first, but then if they drag on or things go wrong, then they may actually become an albatross and pull down the presidential approval ratings. There's the Watergate scandal, which, let me see if I can go. This sharp drop here is probably partly the Watergate scandal. There were other major unexpected events, the oil embargo in '74, There were other things happening which may also contribute to President Nixon's sharp drop in popularity. Public response to these dramatic and often unexpected events is variable and hard to predict. Again, as I said, the public often seems to rally around the president at first in a crisis, and then later it may turn into something negative. Before I wrap up, I just want to mention a little bit about being wary of both the input and output data. Our output data is, of course, the poll results. Polling percentages for approval of the president vary by around 4 or 5% between different companies like Rasmussen versus Gallup versus various other polls. There's lots of controversy over how the polls are done, how the questions are asked, whether they have representative samples of the public, of voters. There's lots of issues here. And there are a number of historical cases, including the 2016 U.S. presidential election, when polling has clearly been way off. The inputs are from the St. Louis Federal Reserve, which has a lot of economic data, including the official unemployment numbers. There's a lot of criticism of official economic numbers, unemployment, inflation. In particular, my own experience, especially during down periods, is the official unemployment numbers seem noticeably lower than what I sort of see with people I know. Inflation, in my own experience, often seems a bit higher. I think we're actually seeing that right now with the high inflation. There are many economists who've raised significant questions about how these numbers are calculated. So all these numbers have to be taken. The quality of data here is certainly not as high as, say, some laboratory physics experiments or things like that you could do in your garage, where your errors aren't in the few percent. They're in a tiny, tiny fraction of a percent. That's one of the problems with economics and social data, social sciences data. So to recap, this is a first look with our math recognition technology, which identifies possible mathematical models in higher dimensions, fits them to the data automatically, and shows the results. And ideally, these models are predictive, they're actionable, you can make good decisions on them. That concludes this first look at presidential approval ratings using math recognition. This concludes this video presentation. If you like this video, please click like. Please click subscribe and the notification bell if you would like to receive more content from us. You can avoid internet censorship by subscribing directly to our RSS news feed. Please consider sharing the link by email and on your website or blog, in addition to liking, upvoting, or sharing on increasingly censored, advertising beholden, big company social media. We have encountered such censorship. Mathematical software is developing algorithms and software to automate data analysis, reducing the risks of costly errors and increasing the predictive power of the results. You can support our work financially by subscribing on our Patreon page, https://www.patreon.com/mathsoft, or scanning the QR code in the lower right corner.